crap, you are a lot of people. I was thinking this was going to be like a dozen people because welcome to touchy-feely land. This is your brain, as drawn by my 21-year-old kid. This is your brain on code. So everybody had fun thinking about code all day? So this is your brain in touchy-feely land. So you guys probably have heard this called a soft talk. I don't know why they call them that because they're really hard, both to do and to participate in. And I want you to know that I'm not going to cut you any slack. So you probably have to feel something while you're here. If that's an issue for anybody, I strongly recommend you find a talk that's more like that. And no hard feelings. But if you stay, you can't tell me later that I made you feel things and that was rude. So I keep thinking about this. I hadn't really planned on including it, but I keep thinking about this woman I met in Eugene, Oregon. I'm sorry, I hate these kind of mic. I'll try to behave. I met this woman in Eugene, Oregon about 10 years ago at a poetry slam where at the time I had gone to support a friend because I would never speak in front of people. And this woman who was in her 20s was fat. And then she was like fat like me. And I don't know if you know this about women, those of you who aren't. But I'm pretty sure most of us always know who the fattest woman in the group is. Or like whether we're fatter or thinner than the person we're hanging out with. We know this, right? It's not just me. Yeah, okay. And if we're the thinner one, it doesn't matter how fat we are hot. Like, you just know. So this woman was fat like me, right? And she walked up on stage like that. And I was mesmerized. I was like, holy shit, what is with her? Like, she walked around like she actually belongs in the world. Like it's okay for her to be there. Like, I don't know, like she might be a worthwhile human being. And I was just like, whoa, I want that, right? Sorry, I gotta move because I'm like trying to reach it. Yeah, so she was really amazing, and I watched her give her, her poetry slam thing, and feel things, and be like totally okay with that, and expect the audience to pay attention. And I'm just like, what is with this woman who thinks that she's like worth something? I'm totally baffled by this. So anyway, that's the start of like the last 10 years of my life. And I kind of think I feel like I'm worth something now. So that's what I'm going to talk about. And it might get scary. So before we go on, I want to invite you guys to change the space that you're in. And that means 5 minutes or so of me saying sappy things and you breathing. Okay? Just to give you a heads up what I'm asking for. And I talked to some people who told me that if they were ever asked to do anything in a talk, they would freak out and leave the room. So I have adjusted how I ask people to do things so that there's nothing you have to do that's visible to anyone. Let me breathe a little bit because I can't walk you through a meditation while I'm like talk jittery. Okay. So if you want to, you can close your eyes. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, you can keep them open. Your hands could go on your lap or on the table, just wherever's comfortable. I want to invite you first to notice where your breath is. Just notice yourself breathing without trying to change it. Are you taking shallow breaths or deep breaths? Does it feel like they fill up your whole body? Or maybe they only go in a little ways? Noticing your breaths, see what else you notice about your physical environment. Can you feel the chair underneath you? Gravity? Can you hear sounds? And as you're breathing, see how it feels to let your breath go all the way down into your belly and fill you up. Sometimes putting your hand on your belly, your hand on your chest helps you feel where the breaths are going in. Notice if you have any thoughts going through your mind. Something you should be doing right now. Thoughts about how weird this is. Ideas about the next talk, the last one. And then staying present with your breath and your surroundings. Notice if you have any emotions coming up. Maybe fear or joy or sadness, irritation. Just notice those things and let them be what they are. And when you're ready, open your eyes or look forward. And give everybody a minute. How's everybody doing? Yeah? Told you it was going to be weird. This is a park in Eugene, Oregon. It's under a freeway, sort of the end of a freeway. And it's a place that I spent a lot of time when I lived there. If you go in closer, the park looks more like this. Sometimes it looks like this. So this guy is named Tennessee. He has another name, but we'll save that one. And he has some friends on the ground sleeping behind. It's not very bright. Can you see the cook pot he's got set up? And the bicycle wheel is a grate. Tennessee was a guy who had a shopping cart with him most of the time because he was always prepared. He always had a stash of food, something to cook it with. He was on top of things. And he also had spent a couple years in jail writing his memoir. His memoir was barely legible and sort of illiterate, but it was fascinating, full of stories about his life. I got to know a lot of people in this park, and I spent a lot of time with them. And the reason I bring it up is because I don't even know which stories to tell, and I haven't memorized the spiel. But the reason I bring it up is because what happened to me when I met these people in this park is that all my ability to categorize people broke. It broke. So one day at this park, there's I don't know if you can, no, you can't see it. There's a stage at one end for outdoor events and stuff. And my partner and I would come and bring a stack of $5 pizzas on Saturday nights and hang out at that stage. The first time we came was kind of weird, but we quickly met people because we offered pizza with no need for anything in return, right? So we were at the stage one day, and they told us to come back on Saturday at 1 p.m. because there was going to be a memorial service. And I had this long conversation with Cindy, who lives there also, about why there's going to be a memorial service. It's for Roy, who is her partner, who took his own life with heroin a week before. And somehow this was the first clue I got that these people had relationships with each other, that they had partners and they had people that they cared about. And over the next year or so, it grew more complex, and I began to understand a whole bunch more things about them, their history, what could happen to a person to bring them to this place. We ended up doing the memorial service. That was sort of, I became a minister that day because we showed up and no one was there to do it. There was supposed to be some Christian group that brought food periodically was going to do it, and they didn't show up. And so, anyway, that was my breaking in, I guess. And the reasoning was, Okay, if there was some brilliant, compassionate minister person who was waiting for this job, I'd be like, okay, here, right? But there wasn't. There was only us. Anyway, so I got to know these people, and I don't have a punchline for you, but it sort of sets the stage for what I want to talk about categorizing people and thinking you know where they're coming from. So if you know what this is, you might be a nerd. And actually, to be fair, if you don't know what this is, you still might be a nerd. That's something we miss sometimes, right? We get into these like, what are they? Okay, I'm going to say a crude term. Plug your ears if you'll be offended. It might even be sexist, I don't know. But we get into these circle jerks where we talk about these things that we think of as nerd things and we leave people out, right? So you can still be a nerd if you don't know what that is. But not if you don't know what this is. Does anybody want to say who these people are? Oh, that's not Monty Python. Those are the knights who say knee. Okay, you also don't have to know who they are. And actually, I'm noticing that nerds are getting younger, so there are a lot of things nerds don't know. It really weirds me out. And there's more nerd stuff for your amusement. Can you guys hear me in back if I don't like... How about if I'm like this, can you still hear me? Oh, good, thank God. But nerds are into a lot of different things, right? We're different. We're all into things because that's what makes us nerds, right? We all have these like things that we become fascinated by. You know, that's why we're like half of us are vegan and half are paleo, because we have these ideas, right, about how things ought to be. That would be a nerd doing beekeeping and a nerd doing mountain biking, whatever. I actually have family, sort of distant family, that does this for fun. These are nerds spending their weekend at a pride parade. And some more because the Facebook picture was so cool I had to include it. And more nerds doing different things. This is a programmer, straight up legit, sent me the picture. And this is a programmer who was deployed overseas. Meanwhile, we have programmers who do this instead. So on one team, I have worked on a team with a trans woman, a poly couple, both on the team, a conservative Christian who was pretty sure God was very, very angry with most people. Like, in all seriousness, this is one team, and we get to work together and care about each other, and really care about each other. So how do we do that? How do we peel away the judgment and knowing that we're right and they're wrong so that we can actually work together, not just like buck up and pretend to be nice, because that doesn't work. It works for some things, but not for others. Oh, and there's more. So this guy, it says at the top, atheist. And then there's, you know, the alternative. This person is not a nerd. Do you know how I know that? Okay, just so everybody's in on the joke, it's not because they don't want people to not speak English, because there are nerds like that. It's because there's inconsistency. So it says, speak English or get the F out. And then it says, right, in case anybody's dyslexic or otherwise doesn't process words, misspelling of what in your... Okay. We don't do inconsistency well, is what my point is. So that's how I know that's not a nerd. These are some nerds. And by all rights, I should be in that picture. Is my... It is. My, what do you call it? Aspect ratio is messed up, isn't it? Okay. Oh, it's my aspect ratio. Okay. Never mind. These nerds live at Marion Correctional Institution in Ohio. It's a medium security prison. Not all of them, actually. All the ones that don't have a name tag and have blue pants live there. And the other ones came in to visit. I'm not in the picture because this is the only picture that made it out was from the first time they had a code retreat in prison, and I wasn't there. All the subsequent ones, we've had other pictures. Amber, one of the organizers of the conference, often goes there. So these guys are in a medium security prison. Some of them started out in maximum security and got moved down. Some of them went joyriding in somebody's car, maybe were present when somebody decided to hold up a store at 19, being really, really stupid. Some of them had lives that led them to moments of violence that were pretty scary, pretty horrific. And these are guys that I sit down next to and pair with. Why am I telling you this? Let me think. So here's us in the computer room pairing. These guys remind me of a couple of things. One is, whenever I think about my own ability to hurt people or become violent, I know I have plenty of ability to become violent, and I hear there are some people who don't, but I think most of us do. We get triggered and hurt. But I remember one time when my own kid, who's like 3, for the first time did something that triggered me really badly, and I got really angry. And I'm looking down at this 2-foot-tall person or whatever, and I'm just enraged, and I'm not even going to show you how scary I can be when I'm enraged. But this little innocent person looks up at me, and I can tell that he thinks I don't love him right then. And I'm like, holy shit, what have I done? So when I think about people getting themselves into horrific situations, that's one of the things I remember, and I can remember other things, So I had a garage, an external garage that I was living in this house, and it was all like the house was pretty old and stuff. But I didn't really realize the condition. There was a wooden door, screen door, for the human door on the garage, and I was mad and I kicked it, and I thought it would hold up to my kick and it would just be me throwing a tantrum, but my foot went through the plywood. It stuck there, so anyway, I have made an ass of myself. And there, but for the grace of God, go I, is what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm capable of, but I know that these guys are people that I know and I care about. So now we get to the fun part. This is Carl Rogers. Carl Rogers was a psychologist, and he died in 1987 or something. He was responsible for transforming the field of psychology, of counseling. I'll read that for you in a sec, so you guys don't have to. He created person-centered or client-centered counseling, also known as humanistic psychology. And what it says is, in my early professional years, I was asking the question, how can I treat or cure or change this person? Now I would phrase the question in this way. How can I provide a relationship which this person may use for their own personal growth, his own personal growth? Excuse me. And the reason I bring this up is he was a therapist, but he also was talking primarily about what people need from other people in order to grow and change. So, to me, in any relationship that I'm in, I want to be a person who's providing that kind of nourishment to the other person. I want to be a person who provides the kind of relationship that lets someone else grow, right? That's what it means to me to be a friend. I've come to believe that I can be a friend to everyone that I know who will have me. There are people who are in such pain that they can't open up or talk, but within limits. I've come to believe that we don't need any enemies, and that we can be that kind of force for change and love for other people. So that's why I bring him up, even though he's a counselor. So he outlined 3 core conditions for therapeutic change, and basically what he means is 3 things that someone needs from another person in order to be in a relationship that lets them grow. So if somebody, I can't figure out how to change this part of my life, and you get together and you have coffee and you talk about it, what they're needing from you, these 3 things. One of them is congruence. Rogers was in an environment with a bunch of therapists who thought they should be something or present a facade. And he said, no, actually what people need is for the real you to be present. So congruence is when someone says something and you're confused, you go, I'm confused. Did you mean, right? Instead of, yes, I. Right? So congruence is being what you seem to be. The next condition that he said we need is empathy. Empathy is when another person can understand where you're coming from, right? They can imagine what it would be like to be in your situation. This guy is Marshall Rosenberg. He invented NVC, nonviolent communication. I don't have much use for NVC as a communication process, but he also wrote a bunch of really wise stuff from my perspective. When we understand that the needs that motivate our own and others' behavior, we have no enemies. When we understand the needs. So he taught me a lot about empathy, so I want to talk more about what he had to say about that. For Rosenberg, everything that happens to us, we process, we feel things about it. We often make up stories about it. We judge it, we evaluate it, and we feel things. And needs are triggered in us, what he called needs and I call treasures. And they're things that all humans value, right? There's nobody who doesn't appreciate beauty or connection with other people or food for that matter, right? Like we all have certain things in common. And those things he called universal human needs. There's nobody who doesn't want the people they love to be safe, for example, right? That's a universal thing. So if somebody feels like the people they love aren't safe and they do all sorts of horrific things, you can look at those things and you can say, okay, I can understand that was a strategy you chose because you wanted these things. I don't really like your strategy because I need these other things, right? So it's all about listening to yourself and the other person and hearing where they're coming from. That's what empathy is to him. I don't know if does that make sense? Am I expressing it? Okay. So the biggest idea that NVC brought us is that everything somebody does is motivated by something beautiful that I can understand. It just doesn't happen that people act in a way that's not motivated by something like that. Sometimes it's self-protection, and it can look really ugly until you figure out that they're afraid, right? When people feel worthless, for example, they will do amazing things in order to get rid of that feeling, but you can understand that need if you dig. The third thing that Rogers said people need to be in a relationship of growth is unconditional positive regard. This one really freaked me out for a long time. Basically, that says unconditional love. That's what someone needs to be in a relationship that allows them to fully reach their potential. What the hell? Where are you going to get that, right? Like, unconditional love means what? It means whatever somebody does, do you still see them as worthwhile and beautiful? I'm going to wait for questions. I'm going to assume there'll be questions on that. But what I really want to point to is how empathy and unconditional love connect together, right? The willingness to listen to what's happening inside the other person, the willingness to go there and find out where they're at, that's what's going to allow you to give them that. And so, unconditional positive regard, as I'm obsessing over it, like I ran across this in 1987 or something, right? And I thought about it a long time, and I read about it, and I thought about it, banged my head up against the wall. But what I noticed in the world when I walked around looking at people is that people are not happy and productive and creative when they're not loved. Like, you go to work and someone says, good morning, and they're really happy to see you. It's like you can work, right? Somebody's like, you can't, you shrink. Like our creativity dies. And so the thing that Rogers got to me with was, it was so obvious to me that it's true. People need acceptance, they need love, they need care. We got to find a way to love and care for people who aren't doing something that makes sense to us right now, right? It's not easy to do. This is Rumi. He's a poet. He was a poet. He's dead. He lived in the 1800s in Persia, I think. So this is a crazy idea. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I will meet you there. How do you get beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing? Okay, I'm going to drop something on you. And I'm not going to be able to work through it in an hour, so I'm just going to drop it on you. And then you're going to go home and have nightmares. So we all think that we know right from wrong. Virtually all, except Rumi and me on a good day, but not on a bad day. Maybe Marshall Rosenberg, I don't know. Anyway, we all think we know right from wrong. And we identify things as wrong and identify things as right. I remember, just to pick a really base example, pulling into a parking lot where some idiot had parked across the lines. Right? I know it's wrong. Apparently they think it's not wrong. Throwing cigarette butts out the window, I don't know, whatever, pick your favorite thing. There are people who think it's okay, people who think it's not okay. How can we disagree about these things if we have access to some official knowledge about right and wrong? That's what I want to know. How is it that we have Democrats and Republicans, and we have pro-abortion people? Did I say that wrong? We have pro-choice people and pro-life people, to use their own language, right? Both of them are very heartfelt about what they're saying. Yes, there are really good reasons to be both, right? Because and women, you know, like you have to, and we have people on both sides. How does that happen if we have access to some truth about right and wrong? So what I'm going to suggest to you, the thing I'm going to drop on you and not be able to like work out, is that you're making it up. Like, what if you're making up every one of those? What if all you have is the ability to follow your heart and try to connect with the person right in front of you and listen to where they're coming from, and you actually don't have any knowledge of what the right answer is? Wouldn't that just be a hoot? Okay, and I'm telling you this from the perspective of someone who has found the ability to love whoever I face. That is true. It's actually true. I mean, sometimes I get triggered and upset, but I actually am able to come back to a place where that person is okay with me and beautiful. Did you ever notice that, like, once you love someone, they're adorable? Like, honestly, like somebody, you weren't going to go out with them, they're just somebody over there, and they're kind of funny looking, and then you go out with them, and you're like, aw. It's true, right? And smiling. I watched an episode of a TV show, I have no idea what it was, and there was this woman, she's old and fat, and she wears an expression like this, you know, and she got a crush on someone, and she made this big smile, and I was like, oh, there it is. Like, we're all beautiful when we're smiling. And we're all beautiful when we're loved. Like, that's how it works, right? Just look around, notice that, see what happens. So one of the keys to getting here is curiosity. I have a tendency to say, WTF. I'll be polite, conference language, but that's not what I say. And whenever I say that, I notice that I'm pushing people away and I'm not getting to what I want. I'm not finding out what I really want to find out. And so if I can get past that place to a place of curiosity, then I say, well, wait a minute, you know, WTF. So like, why would somebody do that? You've all heard somebody say, why would somebody do that? And if you answer with the answer why they would do that, they're like, psh, right? Because they're not asking. They're not asking why somebody would do that. They're yelling at them, right? But if you can make the transformation in your brain, you can switch. When you hear yourself say, why would somebody do that? You go, okay, wait a minute. Why? Okay, why? Why would somebody do that? Why would somebody park across the lines? Well, they're like 9 months pregnant and they have to pee really, really, really bad. And so they got to go in, right? I don't know. There's reasons why people would do it, right? And the thing is, there's always a reason. Because people are people. People care about all kinds of stuff. They care about self-worth. They care about peeing. They care about the people they love, making connections. All the same things. You can come up with a list of things that every single person you meet cares about. I wonder what else we got. I don't have any notes here. So I don't know where the end is. Although I know loving yourself is close to the end. So this is challenging. We have access to everything that we do that doesn't match what we wanted to do. Like other people, pretty much they all get to work on time. They all probably have their laundry done and put away, right? Their cars are all clean. We know what's on the floor of the backseat of our car. Maybe just me, I don't know. It's probably just me. How much of our laundry's not done. That day we had to pull something out of, I guess I wear this. Okay, but we don't know that about other people, right? So we got all kinds of places where we can judge ourselves. And somehow we've got this whole book of laws, right? A good person has all their laundry done and put away. A good person, makes a healthy meal when they get home and doesn't drive through McDonald's. A good person does this, right? We have this whole list of criteria that we don't meet. What are you going to do with that? This is Pema Chodron. She's a Buddhist writer, nun. Actually, let me tell you who she is first. She is a woman who wrote a book that said that her husband told her he was leaving her one day. She was drinking coffee. I'll probably get the story wrong. If you know it, just ignore me. She's drinking coffee and her husband says he's leaving her. And she stops. She takes a deep breath. And then she throws the cup at his head. She was very pissed. So at some point she went to join a monastery. And she has written some brilliant things. And the main lesson that I get from her is about staying with uncomfortable things. She says, those uncomfortable things are the things that are helping you build compassion, helping you learn. And I know that my uncomfortable places are feelings of self-loathing, depression, anxiety, being unlovable. And what I've gotten from those things, from her lesson to sit with them and stop running away from them, was to figure out that other people have that too. And if I'm surrounded by other people who have the kind of deep self-loathing that I have, I want to do everything in my power to help it get better. Right? Like, I don't want anyone else to feel like that. I deserve to feel like that, of course, but you guys don't deserve to feel like that, so I've got to learn something so that I can work through this, right? So she says, my tree, loving kindness, has to go very deep, because when you practice it, you're going to see everything about yourself. I've heard a bunch of teachers say that you cannot love other people unless you love yourself. And you also can't love yourself unless you love other people. And the reason is because when you sign on for judgment, the rule book that says you're good if you're doing this and you're bad if you're doing that, it's going to come back and hit you in the face. If I'm judging other people, I better be being really careful, right? If I'm judging myself, I'm going to end up judging other people. You can't hate yourself and love other people. And vice versa. You only get so far and then it just breaks. It doesn't work. So self-empathy is a word that NBC people use, Marsh Rosenberg uses. And it's about listening to what's going on with you. Okay, I'm an asshole. Wait, that's a judgment. Okay. I did this thing. Why would I do this thing? Why would I do this? No, why would I do this thing? I would do this thing because I really... And then you start to notice your feelings, right? Because I was really scared. Because I was really lonely. Because I was really, I don't know, I was worried about bills. Whatever it is, you can say, you can get to a point where you have compassion for yourself. And that loving yourself, okay, I'm going to dump some more crap on you guys. Loving yourself is not this theoretical thing that they print on calendars. Loving yourself is the ability to look at yourself in the mirror and to say, aw, how you doing? And to actually care. And to look at your feelings and feel compassion for yourself. Actually feel compassion for yourself. The next time you run the car into a pole that was intended to keep you from driving in that direction. Right? you know, like in a drive-thru or in a parking lot. Then you go, you think, you treat yourself like you would treat someone that you love dearly who had just made a mistake and was beating themselves up. Like you actually do that. That's what loving yourself is. It's not like, you know, having a calendar on the wall that says, love yourself, right? I mean, you know, we have lots of calendars, and they say lots of things that, like, don't make any sense, right? But they do make sense. It's just that it's work. Work, work, work. So much work. This shit is hard. But I was determined to come in here and tell you guys the truth. This was like the one time I was going to come to a conference, I was going to lay it out. So you're getting the full thing. Oh, look, we have more slides. One of the things you learned from NVC is that what you're saying can help you pick out things. So I'll just put this up as like I've mentioned these things, right? Diagnosis is, oh, that's not true. That's NVC speak for judgment. But it's like where you identify what something is. You say, that is a bad whatever, or inappropriate. Inappropriate's a good word to give you a clue that you're having feelings. I'm going to skip that one. Okay, we're on the last two slides. So the two things I want to give you to take away from this, to help you cope with the nightmares, is about walking through the world with confident humility, which means knowing that you and all of us screw up all the time, and it's okay. Like, you belong here. It's okay for you to walk in the world. It's okay for you to take up space. It's okay for you to feel things. It's okay for somebody to listen to you, and for you to listen to somebody else. Humility means you're going to be wrong a lot. That's okay. And courageous curiosity, the willingness to turn it around when you think you've got the answer, and it's putting a wall between you and another person, breaking down that wall and replacing it with curiosity. Hey, that's the end. Okay, questions. What are we at? 37. Questions? Where am I? No questions? I killed you. Yes?
So one thing that confuses me, I'm at least a little bit familiar with some of the stuff you're talking about, Shvagan and all that, but the way things are versus the way things they're supposed to be with regards to other people's judgment of us. There's it's like the rules are conditional, so it gets a little confusing, but you know, when somebody says you screwed up, or even you're an idiot, not only you screwed up, you're an idiot, you're not supposed to take that personally. But we always do.
Right.
And then there's the, wow, you did an amazing job, which we usually, it maybe makes us feel good, but we very rarely actually, at least speaking for myself, actually let that sink in.
Oh, you only let the other stuff sink in.
Yeah, you let the bad stuff sink in. But you're supposed to let that sink in. So it's like, where do you draw the line, or not everything is necessarily good or bad. There's a lot of fuzzy. So you're supposed to take it personally, or you're supposed to take nothing personally.
When somebody tells me that I'm an idiot, what I do is punch them in the face. But what I want to do is I want to spend enough time on my cushion, enough time in meditation, and being present with myself that I can say, how do I feel about this? And if I say, I'm pretty sure I'm an idiot, then I spend the time listening to myself, understanding, trying to be compassionate with myself. About the thing that I did that I'm not happy about. But I don't have to take on there is a way that someone can talk to you where they're inviting you to jump into shame and become smaller. I don't have to do that. It's hard. It's a process, but you don't have to take that on. It's because if you have already decided that it's okay for you to be in the world, it's okay for you to make the occasional mistake, it's okay for you to be a fully present and flawed human, right? Then there's not something they can say to make you decide that you're not worthy of being here, right? You got to feed that all the time. Like, I spent some time in the world of Christians. I'm not probably a Christian. Not really going to talk much about religion, because religion isn't something But I spent some time with Christians, and I learned something. There was some time in my life when I got this really strong urge to read specifically the words that were attributed to Jesus, and I spent some time with them, and I came away with a whole new idea, because I was raised non-Christian, and I was like, what is this? What are these church things? I don't even understand this. It makes no sense. And I spent a little bit of time reading them, and what I got was that it was possible. I don't know how to explain it, because that's not my world, but that it's possible to see yourself as fairly worthwhile. Or to imagine, like, okay, if I, see, I'm not going to go here. All right, I'm going to use words like imagine. I understand different people have different relationships with these ideas. If you can picture in your mind a loving God who sees you and thinks you are this loving God's beautiful child, I'll say his because we're talking about a world that does that. Okay. His lovable child, right? Who screws up, falls down, sometimes bites another kid, whatever. You can imagine being loved in a way that you could love a little kid like that, right? And I came away from that experience really understanding that a lot better, understanding unconditional love in a different way. Whether it's true or not, or God is a he or not a he, or the universe, that's not my thing to figure out. But just that I can sit on my cushion and I can envision that sort of love being available, almost that, being able to imagine it being available is enough to make me want to embody it. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah. So if you buy those judgments of you and take it on, you're doing that thing where you sign on for the judgment and you're hurting other people around you too. That compassion is like it's not a two-way street, it's like an ocean you swim in. And judgment is the same way. It's like, if you take it on and you say, I'm worthless, you're announcing to everybody around you that worthlessness is an option. They can be worthless too, right? So it's almost like, I don't want it to be a burden, but it's almost like you have a job on this earth to not feel worthless. Because then you're modeling that for everybody around you. And they can all feel like shit too. And then we don't get our rainbows and ponies. Okay, any other questions? I'm guessing? No? There's always questions. Did I do it wrong? Why are there questions? Okay, thank you. There's a book list if anybody wants it.